The funeral ended before sunset. The sky was gray. Soft rain was falling, as if even the weather felt the sadness of that day. People stood near the grave in silence. Some cried quietly. Some only looked down at the ground. Daniel stood still. He did not cry. He could not cry. His father was gone. The man who raised him. The man who worked hard every day. The man who rarely smiled. Daniel always had mixed feelings about his father. He respected him. He feared him. But he never truly felt close to him. His father was strict and serious. He did not talk much about feelings. He did not share stories from his past. It was like there was a wall between them. After the burial, relatives slowly left. They said kind words. They shook Daniel's hand. Then one by one they disappeared. Soon Daniel was alone. That night he returned to the old family house. The house felt different. Too quiet. Too empty. Every corner reminded him of his father. The old chair near the window. The glasses on the table. The coat hanging behind the door. Daniel walked slowly into his father's bedroom. The air in the room felt heavy. Everything was clean and organized just like always. His father was a man who liked order. Nothing was ever out of place. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. He looked around the room, trying to understand why he felt so strange. Then he saw it. Under the bed, in the dark shadow, was a small wooden box. Daniel froze. He knew that box. He remembered it clearly from his childhood. When he was about 8 years old, he once crawled under the bed while playing. That was when he first saw the box. It looked old even back then. Dark brown wood, metal corners, a small lock in the front. Curious, little Daniel had tried to pull it out. But before he could open it, his father suddenly entered the room. The anger on his father's face that day was something Daniel never forgot. "Do not touch that box," his father had said in a cold voice. Daniel had never seen him so upset before. "Never open it. Ever." Those words stayed in Daniel's mind for years. After that day, Daniel never tried to touch it again. He avoided even looking at it. But sometimes, late at night, he wondered what was inside. Was it money? Old family documents? Something valuable? Or something dangerous? His father never spoke about it again. And now his father was gone. Daniel slowly got down on his knees. He reached under the bed and carefully pulled the box out. It was heavier than he remembered. He placed it on the floor in front of him. His heart started beating faster. The box looked simple, but it felt important, like it carried something powerful inside. Daniel noticed something else. On the wall, near the mirror, there was a small nail, and hanging on that nail was a single old key. Daniel stared at it. Was that the key to this box? His father had never hidden the key. It had always been there, in plain sight. Why keep the box locked but leave the key where anyone could see it? Daniel stood up slowly and walked toward the wall. His hand trembled as he took the key. He felt nervous. Opening the box felt like breaking a rule. Even though his father was no longer alive, it still felt wrong. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "Never open it." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He whispered softly, "I'm sorry, Dad." He returned to the box and sat down. The room was silent. Only the sound of rain hitting the window could be heard. Daniel put the key into the lock. For a second, he stopped. What if what was inside changed everything? What if it destroyed the memory he had of his father? What if it answered questions he was not ready to hear? He took a deep breath. Slowly, he turned the key. Click. The sound felt loud in the quiet room. The lock opened. Daniel lifted the lid carefully. Inside, he did not see money. He did not see jewelry. He saw something much more shocking. At the top of the box was an old envelope. On it were written 3 words that made his blood run cold. "To my son." Daniel's hands began to shake. Why would his father hide a letter for him in a locked box? Why not just give it to him? Why wait until death? The rain outside became heavier. Thunder rolled in the distance. Daniel slowly picked up the envelope. He had no idea that the words inside would change his entire life. And in that quiet bedroom, with his father gone and the box finally open, Daniel felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Because sometimes, the truth hides in silence for many years. And when it finally comes out, nothing is ever the same again. Daniel stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Felt heavier than paper should feel. His name was not written on it. Only 3 simple words. To my son. The handwriting was his father's. Strong, straight, serious. Just like the man himself. Daniel swallowed slowly. Why would his father lock away a letter meant for him? Why hide it instead of speaking face to face? The room felt colder. Rain tapped against the window like soft fingers. The house was silent, but Daniel's heart was loud inside his chest. He carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter, old, yellow at the edges. Daniel unfolded it slowly. His hands were shaking. The first line made him stop breathing. If you are reading this, it means I no longer had the courage to tell you the truth while I was alive. Daniel blinked. Courage? His father? The same man who never showed fear? The same man who faced every problem without complaint? Daniel kept reading. There is something about your life that I have hidden from you since the day you were born. A cold feeling ran through Daniel's body. His mind began to race. Hidden? Since the day he was born? What could be so big that it needed to stay hidden for so many years? He continued. I told myself I would tell you many times. On your 10th birthday. On your graduation day. On the day you first fell in love. But every time I was afraid. Daniel felt confused. Afraid of what? He had always believed his father was a strong man who feared nothing. But these words showed a different side. A man who carried something heavy inside his heart. Daniel read the next line, and everything inside him stopped. You are not my biological son. The paper slipped slightly in his hand. The words felt unreal. Not my biological son. Daniel read the sentence again, and again. It did not change. The room felt smaller. The air felt thin. No, he whispered softly to himself. This could not be true. His father was his father. He looked like him. People had even said they shared the same serious eyes. But now doubt entered his mind. Daniel continued reading, his hands trembling. The man you believe is your father by blood left before you were born. Daniel felt anger rising inside him. Left? Who would leave a child before he was even born? He felt pain for the baby he once was. Alone before even taking his first breath. The letter continued. Your mother loved you more than anything. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. His mother had died when he was very young. He barely remembered her face. Only soft memories. A gentle voice. A warm smile. He read further. She asked me to promise something, and I gave her my word. Daniel's heart pounded louder. What promise? The rain outside became heavier, almost like the sky was reacting to the truth inside the room. I promised her that I would raise you as my own, that I would never let you feel unwanted, that you would never know what it feels like to be abandoned. Daniel's breath became uneven. The strict man he had always thought was distant had made a promise like that. The letter did not stop. I signed the papers quietly. No one in the family knows. I chose to carry this truth alone. Daniel felt shock and confusion mixing together. All these years, no one knew? This secret lived only inside his father's heart? Why keep it hidden from him? He searched the letter for answers. I was afraid that if you knew, you would look at me differently. I was afraid you would search for the man who left you. I was afraid I would lose you. Lose him? Daniel's chest tightened. He thought about every strict rule, every silent dinner, every serious look from his father. Was it not anger? Was it fear? Fear of losing a son who was never his by blood? Tears slowly fell from Daniel's eyes. The letter continued in softer words. You may not share my blood, but you are my son in every way that matters. I chose you. Every single day. Daniel pressed the paper against his chest. Chosen. He was not an accident. Not a mistake. Not unwanted. He was chosen. The room was still silent, but inside Daniel, a storm had started. Questions filled his mind. Who was his real father? Why did he leave? Why did his mother trust this man so deeply? But deeper than the questions was something else. A new understanding. The man he thought was cold had been carrying fear, love, and sacrifice all along. Daniel looked down at the letter one last time. At the bottom were the final words. I hope one day you understand that love is not about blood. It is about choice. Daniel sat there for a long time. The house did not feel empty anymore. Felt full. Full of a truth that hurt. Full of a love he never saw clearly before. And yet, something told him this was not the only secret inside that box. Because beneath the letter, he could see something else waiting. Daniel could not move for several minutes. The letter was still in his hands. His eyes were red. His mind was full of questions. You are not my biological son. Those words kept repeating inside his head like a broken echo. Slowly, he placed the letter beside him on the floor. He looked back into the wooden box. There was something underneath. Carefully, he reached inside again. His fingers touched something smooth. It was a photograph. An old one, slightly bent at the corners. Daniel lifted it up, and his heart stopped again. The photo showed a young woman sitting on a hospital bed. She looked tired, but she was smiling softly. In her arms, she held a newborn baby wrapped in a white blanket. The baby was him. Daniel recognized the tiny birthmark near the baby's ear. His mother used to kiss that spot when he was little. His eyes moved slowly across the picture. Next to the hospital bed stood a man. But it was not his father. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. The man in the photo looked young. He had soft eyes and messy dark hair. His hand was resting gently on the baby's blanket. He looked proud, happy. Daniel stared at the stranger's face. Is this him? He whispered. Was this the man who left before he was born? Was this his real father? The stranger in the photo did not look cruel. He did not look heartless. He looked normal. That made it worse. Daniel felt anger growing inside him. How could someone look at their newborn child like that and still leave? His hands started shaking again. He turned the photograph over. There was something written on the back. In faded ink, it said, 3 days before everything changed. Daniel's heart beat faster. What changed? He looked at the date written below the sentence. It was exactly 3 days before his mother died. Daniel felt a heavy weight pressing on his chest. Was the man in the picture there when she died? Did he leave before or after? His mind filled with painful thoughts. For years, Daniel believed his father was just strict and distant. But now he understood something deeper. Maybe the distance came from pain. Maybe his father watched this woman, the love of his life, hold another man's child. Maybe he chose to stay. Daniel looked closer at the photo. He noticed something small in the corner. His father. In the background, near the hospital window, stood the man who raised him. He was not close to the bed. He was not smiling. He looked serious, watching quietly. Daniel's eyes filled with tears again. His father was there from the beginning. Not as the main person, not as the hero in the front, but there, standing in the shadows. Daniel suddenly remembered something from his childhood. When he was 6 years old, he once asked his father, "Was I a happy baby?" His father paused for a moment before answering. "Yes," he said quietly. "You were very loved." Daniel never understood the sadness in his father's voice that day. Now he did. He looked back at the stranger in the photo, the man who shared his blood. He tried to feel something, love, connection, recognition, but there was nothing, just questions. Daniel searched inside the box again. Under the photo were more papers, hospital documents, birth certificate copies. One paper caught his attention. It had 2 names written on it, the name of the man in the photo, and then crossed out with a dark line. Below it, written clearly, was his father's name. Daniel felt shock again. His father had legally replaced the other man's name. He had stepped into that role fully. Not halfway, not temporarily, fully. Daniel felt something breaking inside him, but it was not anger anymore. It was understanding. His father did not just raise him. He chose him. Every school meeting, every birthday cake, every time he stayed up late waiting for him to come home. Those were choices. Daniel looked at the photo one last time. He studied the stranger's face carefully. "This is where I come from," he whispered. But then he looked toward the bedroom door. "And that is who made me who I am. Blood gives life, but love builds it." Daniel gently placed the photograph next to the letter. He thought the worst was over. He thought he had found the biggest secret. But as he moved the remaining papers aside, he noticed one more envelope at the bottom of the box, thicker than the first one, sealed tightly. On it were written different words this time. "Not to my son," but something much more serious. Daniel felt fear return, because whatever was inside that final envelope was not about the past. It was about the future, and it would force him to make a choice he never expected. Daniel stared at the second envelope for a long time. It looked different from the first one. The paper was thicker. The edges were sharp. Felt more official, more serious. On the front, in his father's handwriting, were only 2 words. "For when you're ready." Daniel felt a chill move through his body. Ready for what? His hands were still shaking from the photograph and the letter. His world had already changed once tonight. How much more could he take? The rain outside had stopped. The house was now completely silent. Too silent. Daniel slowly opened the envelope. Inside were several folded documents. Hospital records, legal papers, old forms with stamps and signatures. He unfolded the first page. It was a hospital report. The date was the same as the photograph. Daniel read carefully. The words became blurry for a moment, but he forced himself to focus. Emergency delivery, heavy bleeding, critical condition. His breathing became slow and uneven. The report continued. Mother did not survive. Daniel closed his eyes. Even though he always knew his mother died during his birth, seeing it written in cold medical words felt different. Felt real in a painful way. He swallowed hard and read the next page. It described something else. Father not present at time of emergency. Daniel froze. Not present. He searched the page again, hoping he misunderstood. But it was clear. The man in the photograph, his biological father, was not there when things went wrong. He was not there when his mother needed help. He was not there when Daniel entered the world. Daniel felt anger rise again, stronger this time. How could someone leave like that? He turned to the next document. It was a signed statement, and this time the signature at the bottom was his father's. The man who raised him. The paper explained everything. 3 days before Daniel was born, his biological father left the city. No one knew exactly why. Some said fear. Some said responsibility. Some said he simply was not ready to be a father. When Daniel's mother went into early labor, she was alone. Except for one person, his father. The man Daniel once thought was cold and distant was the one who drove her to the hospital. The one who waited outside the delivery room. The one who signed the emergency papers. The one who held Daniel first after he was born. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He imagined that moment. A newborn baby crying. A woman fighting for her life. And a man standing there not as the real father, but choosing to stay. The documents explained more. After his mother passed away, there was confusion about Daniel's future. There were no close relatives ready to take him. The biological father never returned. And then came the final page, an adoption form, signed only 1 week after Daniel's birth. His father had adopted him legally and completely. No delay, no hesitation. Daniel's eyes filled with tears again. He thought back to his childhood. His father never spoke about the past. Never showed baby pictures. Never told birth stories. Daniel once thought it was because he did not care. Now he understood. Maybe those memories were too painful. Maybe every time he looked at Daniel, he remembered the woman he lost. And the man who ran away. Daniel noticed a small note attached to the final page. It was written in simple words. I did not save her, but I could save you. Daniel broke down completely. The man he once misunderstood had carried this weight alone for his entire life. He had lost the woman he loved. He had watched another man walk away. And instead of leaving too, he stayed. Daniel wiped his tears, but they kept coming. All those years of strict rules, serious talks, and silent dinners, they were not signs of coldness. They were signs of a man who was afraid. Afraid of failing again. Afraid of losing the only piece of her that was left. Daniel looked at the adoption paper again. There was one detail he never noticed before. Under reason for adoption, his father had written something by hand, not required, not official, just written. Because he deserves a father. Daniel felt something change inside him. For years, he thought his father was hard on him because he was disappointed. Now he understood something deeper. His father pushed him to be strong, to be better, to succeed, because he believed Daniel deserved the best life possible. The house no longer felt heavy, felt full of sacrifice. Daniel gently placed the papers back into the envelope. He looked around the bedroom once more. The same walls, the same furniture, but now everything looked different, because now he knew the truth. He was not abandoned. He was chosen in the middle of tragedy. And suddenly the word father had a new meaning. Not blood, not DNA, but love that stays, even when it hurts. Daniel thought he had reached the end of the secrets, but Daniel's hands were tired. His heart was heavy. He felt like he had lived 10 years in one single night. But when he saw the small velvet pouch at the bottom of the box, something inside him told him this was not over yet. The pouch was dark blue, soft, carefully folded. It did not look like an official document. It did not look like hospital papers. It looked personal, very personal. Daniel slowly picked it up. For a moment, he just held it in his hand. The room felt different now. Not cold, not empty, but quiet in a deep way. He gently opened the pouch. Something small fell into his palm. A silver ring. Daniel stared at it. It was simple. No big stone. No shining design. Just a plain silver band. On the inside of the ring, there were words carved very small. Daniel brought it closer to the light. The engraving read, "Forever, no matter what." Daniel's breath became slow. He had seen this ring before. His father used to wear it when Daniel was very young. But one day it disappeared. Daniel never asked about it. He always thought it was lost. But it was not lost. It was hidden. Under the ring, inside the pouch, was one last folded paper. Smaller than the others. Daniel unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was softer this time. Not strong and straight like before. It looked more emotional. The note said, "This was her ring." Daniel's hands trembled. His mother. The note continued, "I was going to give this back to the man who bought it for her. But he never returned. So I kept it." Daniel felt his heart twist. The biological father bought the ring. But his father kept it. Why? He read the next line. "I kept it because she once told me something before you were born." Daniel leaned forward. The words felt heavier now. She said, "If anything ever happens to her, she wants you to grow up knowing that you were born from love, not from fear." Daniel closed his eyes. He imagined his mother saying those words. Soft voice, gentle smile. The note continued. "She loved you more than anyone, even when she was scared, even when she was unsure about the future." Daniel felt tears fall again. But this time they were not only from shock. They were from connection. The note went on. "The man who shares your blood may have left, but she never doubted your worth. And neither did I." Daniel pressed the ring tightly in his hand. All his life he carried silent questions inside. Why was his father so serious? Why did he never talk about his mother? Why did he sometimes look at Daniel with deep sadness in his eyes? Now he understood. His father was not distant. He was protecting something fragile. Protecting memories. Protecting promises. Protecting a child that was not his by blood, but was his by heart. Daniel read the final part of the note. "I kept this ring to remind myself of the promise I made. Not just to her, but to you. He paused before reading the last line. If you ever feel lost about who you are, look at this ring and remember, you were wanted, you were chosen, and you were loved from the very beginning. Daniel could not hold back anymore. He cried openly. All the pain, confusion, anger, and questions slowly began to settle. He realized something important. The final secret was not about money, not about property, not about hidden family members. It was about love. His father had kept this ring not because it belonged to another man, but because it belonged to a promise. Promise to raise a child without fear. Daniel stood up slowly from the floor. He walked toward the mirror. He looked at his reflection. For the first time in his life, he did not feel confused about who he was. He was the son of a brave woman who loved him deeply, and he was the son of a man who stayed when he did not have to. He slipped the silver ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly. Daniel smiled through his tears. The locked box did not destroy his world. It rebuilt it, piece by piece. And in that quiet bedroom, surrounded by truth and memory, Daniel finally understood something that would stay with him forever. Family is not made by blood. It is made by the people who choose to stay. And sometimes the greatest secret is not a lie. It is a love so deep that it hides itself. Until the right moment. The house felt different now. Not empty, not silent, but alive with memories. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, the silver ring still on his finger. He looked around the room again, but this time his eyes were not searching for secrets. They were searching for understanding. All these years, he thought he knew his father. He thought he understood him. A strict man, a serious man, a man who did not show much love. But now the truth was clear. His father was a man who loved quietly. Daniel closed his eyes, and memories began to rise like waves. He remembered the first time he tried to ride a bicycle. He kept falling. His knees were bleeding. He wanted to give up. His father stood behind him, holding the back of the seat. "Try again," he had said. Not softly, not warmly, but firmly. Daniel thought it was pressure. Now he understood it was belief. His father believed he could stand on his own. Another memory came. Daniel was 12 years old. He failed a math test. He was afraid to show the result. When his father saw the paper, he did not shout. He only said, "You can do better." Daniel thought those words meant disappointment. Now he realized they meant something else. They meant trust. Trust that he was capable of more. Daniel stood up and slowly walked through the hallway. The wooden floor made soft sounds under his feet. He stopped in front of an old shelf in the living room. On the shelf were trophies from school, certificates, old photographs from sports events. His father kept everything, even small achievements that Daniel himself forgot. Why would a man who was distant keep such careful memories? Because he was proud. Daniel felt his chest tighten again. He walked into the kitchen. He remembered nights when he came home late from college. His father would pretend to be asleep in the chair. But the kitchen light was always on. There was always food waiting on the table. Daniel thought it was routine. Now he understood it was care. Care without words. Daniel slowly sat down at the kitchen table. He remembered one moment very clearly. When he was 17, he once shouted at his father, "You never tell me you love me." His father stayed silent for a long time. Then he said something Daniel never forgot. "You don't need to hear it. You need to feel it." At that time, Daniel thought it was cold. Now he understood. His father did not know how to speak about feelings. Maybe he was afraid. Afraid that if he said too much, the truth would come out. Afraid that Daniel would look at him differently. Afraid that love could disappear. Daniel placed his hands on the table and looked down. The silver ring shined softly under the light. His father had lost the woman he loved. He had watched another man run away. He had stepped into a role that was not his responsibility. And he carried that secret alone for more than 20 years. Daniel suddenly felt something new. Not sadness. Not shock. Gratitude. Deep gratitude. Because his father did not choose the easy path. He chose the hard one. He chose sleepless nights. He chose school meetings. He chose strict discipline. He chose responsibility. He chose fatherhood. And fatherhood is not about blood. It is about staying when leaving would be easier. Daniel stood up and walked back toward the bedroom. He picked up the wooden box once more. This time it did not feel heavy. Felt sacred, like something holy. He gently closed it and locked it again. Not because he wanted to hide the truth, but because he wanted to protect it. Protect the story. Protect the promise. Daniel looked toward the window. The sky outside was clearing. The rain had stopped completely. For the first time since the funeral, he felt calm. He realized something important. He did not need to search for the man who shared his blood. He already knew the man who gave him his life. Not life through birth, but life through guidance, through sacrifice, through love that stayed silent but strong. Daniel whispered softly into the empty room, "You were always my father." The house no longer felt like a place of loss, felt like a place of truth. And tomorrow he would go back to the grave, not with anger, not with confusion, but with something much stronger, understanding, because now he finally knew the real meaning of the word father. And it had nothing to do with blood.